Hi, everybody. Andrea Fair here with Flying Free Ministries. I am so excited to have my friend Lori Heitrich here today with me. She is a soul sister. God brought her to me shortly after my brother had passed away in 2015, and she was my grief recovery coach. And I will just forever be indebted to her for so many reasons. But, anyways, I thank you so much for coming, Lori. And she's also the author of this book. I forgot to tell you, Losing Lance, and she'll share more about that, I am certain. But even today, as I was looking at it, I have a lot of dog-eared corners, which means, oh man, I love this part. I love this part. So it's worth buying for sure. It's on Amazon, and it's actually also at Shepherd's Fold if you live in the Grand Prairie area. So, Lori, thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for having me, Andrea. I love being here with you.
Can you share with us a bit of your background with grief?
Well, my personal background with grief, I had some major losses in my life. Typically, like a lot of us, did lose all my grandparents at various times in life. Those ones, not that they didn't affect me, but they weren't as hard because you expect to lose your grandparents. Then at the age of 30, I went through a divorce. When I was 40, I lost my mom to cancer. And then at 45 was actually the hardest loss of my life, was when my 18-year-old son was killed. And so that was my personal experience and background with loss. In 2014, professionally, I went for my training with the Grief Recovery Institute out of the United States and became certified as a grief recovery specialist, as you know, and work one-on-one with people as they journey through their grief, just helping them through anything that was left unsaid that they just really need to work through.
For sure. Wow. And I know for a fact that that is an amazing program. I still remember before every session, I'd be like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then after every session, you're exhausted. But at the same time, just that sense of, okay, there's steps have been taken and just more and more healing. And now even like we had just talked about before we started recording, today's actually my brother Byron would have turned 46 today. And so he's been in heaven for 5 years. And yeah, but the I've just been marveling today at how God has brought me on that journey of grief, and how the ache is still there and we for sure still
Yeah.
miss him. But because I have said the things I need to say through that program, that I've been able to just have just peace. Wild
Yes.
journey ache, right?
Yes. Yeah. It helps us release really a lot of what causes the pain. And that's everything we wish we would have said or done differently, better, or more, so that we can grieve in a healthy way. You know, you hear the term grief recovery and it's kind of deceptive. It makes it think that we're not going to grieve, but we still grieve after we go through that. I mean, that is normal and natural. How do we not grieve when it's people we love that we've lost? There's just no way around that. So, yeah, that is the idea of the program. And I personally found it very beneficial, which is why I wanted to share it with others as well. So,
For sure. And can you tell us a bit
yeah.
about how you got to that place of being ready to take a program on grief when you'd had and get certified as a coach?
Well, it's kind of funny because when I was went the year I lost Lance, within a 4 month, I'm from a very small town, and within a 4 month period, there was like 7 deaths, and most of them tragic, like sudden and tragic. So there was a lot of families in our area that were very much hurting.
Hmm.
And because of my relationship with Jesus, I thought I was doing as okay as I would ever do after losing a child. So I started looking for something that I could bring to the community to help others, not knowing how much I actually still needed it myself. So I actually just went online and was kind of looking for a small group format. And that's when I stumbled upon the grief recovery, which I, kind of say stumbled upon tongue in cheek because I know it was God leading me. And it just kind of went from there. I just thought Grand Prairie, as size of it was, there'd be someone there that we could bring out to the area. And there was no one certified in Grand Prairie. The closest was Edmonton. And so just one thing led to another. And a few months later, it just wouldn't leave me. And so I went for my training. And like I said, though, when I was at my training, I realized it was just as much for me, if not more for me, than everyone else, because I still was needing so much healing I wasn't aware of. So
Hmm.
that's what kind of led me to it. So,
Definitely. Wow.
yeah.
And if I recall, would you be willing to share what your husband said when you got home? Because that stuck with me from our.
That with when I asked to, okay, hoping I'm on the right story here, but when I got home and I said to my husband, now, oh boy, Andrew, you might have to
Give me more.
help me remember this story, how
I
it
think
went.
I thought he had said that that there looked like a burden had lifted
Yes.
off you or something, right?
I asked him, because I felt so much lighter. Like, honestly, it felt like I'd lost 500 pounds. And that is what he said. He says, you look like a different person. It's like that burden is off your shoulder. My neighbor, actually, I hadn't even seen her. And she just said to me on the phone, I can hear it in your voice, Lori. You are so much lighter and you're laughing again, it had already been a year and a half after my son's death, which isn't a long time, I know, but still, like, for in that short time of training, that drastic of a change,
Yeah.
it was pretty amazing for people to see it and hear it in the voice. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
can resonate with that just because even if in my own grief journey, once I went through the program and did the work that I needed to do, um, I can have the memories. Like today, I just let myself sit in the memories and just
Yeah.
enjoy them. And because I had, life is happening, but it was so different from before when it was more of a sifting through our life together and going, oh man, that didn't happen. Oh man, I never followed through with that.
Yeah.
And there had been so much closure. I could just enjoy that. Oh man, we had so many good times together. And especially
Yeah.
because his passing was slower than I was able to
Right.
get in a lot of quality time at the end there. So that will
Yeah.
always be a beautiful memory for me, even though it aches, right?
And I
Sad.
love that for, when you, right, exactly, exactly. And I love how you said the work of it, because it is work.
Mhm.
So many people, they aren't willing to face the pain of it. And then they just carry that, because to look at our grief and to work through it usually spikes it for a short period of time. You hit that level 10 where you don't think you're going to live through it. But then when you choose to face it and work through it, that's then going to dissipate and you're going to get to a place where there's far less pain. And a lot of people, they're too scared to look at that. And I'm not judging them. I still understand it. It's scary for them to hit that level 10. So they just rather walk around at a level 6 or 7 their entire lives. And then I'm thinking so much of the life is wasted when, yes, it's very hard to look at our pain. It's very hard to do the work that we need to do. And it is work. There's no way around it. But it's the rest of our life then we can enjoy. And like you said, we enjoy the memories more. Like, we really enjoy the memories more because the pain isn't shutting them down.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's totally valid too. Like I remember just like I will go into lockdown so that I don't feel that pain, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
not going there today. I can't do it again. And yet slowly realizing, coming to trust that that pain's there for a reason. And if I actually face it and feel it, then I can move into the next part, which is to have space
Yes.
to enjoy what we have had together. So,
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
beautiful. So, what are different? So, I guess we kind of are starting to talk already about strategies or that have helped you. And could you share with us a bit more about that? What strategies have helped you cope with your grief waves and continue to help you?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is to give ourselves grace. We're so good at, quite often, not always, but so often we can give grace to others and not ourselves. And we just need to look at ourselves as if we are someone else and just be gentle, because we have these expectations. Like, I find this is very common that we all have expectations on ourselves. And when it comes to grief, we think there's a set amount of time and then we should be okay. It doesn't work like that. Grief is a journey, and there is the waves and there's the triggers that are going to hit. And it does not matter how long it's been. We're still going to have those. And we need to allow that. Like this March was 7 years since Lance's accident. This was one of the hardest ones for me. The first couple years were really hard, but honestly, this year was harder than last year or the year before. And at first, I'm kind of going like, it's been 7 years. It should be okay by now. And then when you let that go and realize that, no, you know what? I'm feeling this. I'm going to allow myself to feel it. That just makes a huge difference, just to give ourselves that grace. Allow ourselves to feel what we need to feel. Don't minimize it. Don't try and or think we shouldn't even have it, and to sit with it and not in it. I have learned that, because if we sit in it, kind of thing, um, me personally, It's more like partnering with it, and then I can get into the despair. If I sit with it and say, okay, I am feeling this, but it's not going to last forever. I will allow myself to feel it right now because it's not going to last forever. And alongside with that, then throw the truth in that I need to hear, like, God is close to the brokenhearted, or whatever the truth is. It's going to be something different for someone else. But quite often this year, the one he was giving me a lot was, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So just to remind myself of that truth, he's here sitting with me in it as well. And we just need to allow that, rather than fight it, rather than push it off, rather than think we shouldn't even have it. So, and just know that it does not matter how many years it's been, the waves will hit, the triggers will hit, and that's okay. That's okay.
Part of the journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I just as I was peeking through your book again now, I came across a quote about your girls finding you crying but worshiping God at the same time. Could you share a bit
Yeah.
more of that? Because I know as a mom, as a parent, as an adult, there's sometimes that false expectation or extra internal pressure that I need to act this way when I am hurting, so that blah blah blah. And so, can you tell us a bit how you navigated that in your journey with life?
I think that was just totally God because I just didn't even think that one through, right? Like I was in such great pain and that was my child. I lost a part of my heart. And so I was in such great pain, and yet I instinctively knew the only way I was going to make it through it was with God. And so, I'd have my moments where I'd kind of rant a little bit at him, but it was kind of like Psalms. Then I'd get back to the worship because I knew without God I wouldn't make it through. I also knew that, I don't know, it just, like I said, I'm sure it was God because it was kind of an instinctive thing. I just also realized that I don't need to hide this from my girls. I mean, I have lost a child, for goodness sake. I don't need to be okay, and it's okay for them to see me cry. And so I would not try and hide it. Where I know of others that were deeply affected by Lance's loss, that they wanted to get away because they were trying to be strong for their children. So they wanted to get away to do their grieving and then come back to their families. And I don't know, right from the beginning, I just instinctively knew that it's okay if my girls see me like this. And I'm glad I did that, because like now the more I learn, even through the grief recovery and that, I think that's a gift I actually unknowingly gave to them at that time. So, yeah.
It was interesting, and we are talking in a different interview, and from the conversation I just was like, wait a minute, like freedom is contagious. Like when I have freedom with my emotion and
Mm.
just do what I need to do in that moment, and whoever sees, they end up seeing, there is that freedom for them to they are allowed to, right? It's permission that
Yes,
you're allowed to
it
cry,
is.
right? And you're allowed to miss your brother.
Yes,
For
yes,
sure.
absolutely. And then as children, we so much tend to absorb what we're seeing, and we learn from observation. So by them watching me freely grieve, that you're right, that gave them permission. Where how often as children we don't see that. So then we don't know what to do with grief when it hits, because we have never learned what to do with it, because we were never shown a healthy model. So,
Right, exactly.
yeah.
Wow. I'm just totally going rogue here, but anyways, you listen, you'll be fine.
I
Uh,
love you. You're right. It will be fine.
Lori did so much. Lori did like all like tons and tons and tons of editing on my book, and she's actually the one who introduced me to the Author Academy Elite program. And so yeah, we have, even though we haven't seen each other for such a long time, it's hilarious because we just like, oh yeah, let's go. Just
Yeah.
um, you touched on it just a little bit here now, but with God, like you have a relation with God, and then He allows your son to tragically get taken from you. Obviously, wow, like that would be the
Mm.
end of a relationship with God for a lot of people. And I'm just, how did you navigate that? What did that look like for you?
You know what seems really strange to me is after my mom died, I was actually angry at God because I knew He could have healed her. You hear all the stories of healing. She had cancer, and I was angry. And yet I was not angry at Him after Lance's death. Or so I thought. I've discovered in this last year, I had anger I didn't realize that was there. So I had to work through that. Um, except for that first Christmas, I do remember, hearing a Christmas song and talked about God being with us. And I literally remember sitting at my table and yelling at God, saying, if you are with us, where were you when Lance died? And I had that whisper to my heart that I was right there with him. And well, you can't argue with that, right? I got that confidence. And I don't honestly, I think part of it with Lance too is right from the beginning, we had various people that didn't even know each other that came to us with that one verse in the Bible. And now, of course, I should have looked it up. I don't even remember what it is right now.
Okay.
But basically, from it, I just strongly believed right from the beginning that God allowed this as a form of protection for Lance. What he was protecting Lance from, I don't know, but I really believe it wasn't the best for us, obviously, because we're grieving Lance. But I really believe it was the best for Lance. And I know that sounds horrible and weird, but I think that is also how I navigated through it, is because I just trusted that God did or allowed what was best. And I still do to this day think that now. I think a lot of it, and I want to be cautious how I say this because I don't want to put anything on anyone else, but where our relationship is with God before something like this happens determines a lot of how we come out of our, or how, what our relationship's like through something like this. Like, I've been through enough other little things that, and one Beth Moore study especially that really stands out for me, that it was on, if you're living your worst fear, then, like, so it was if blank, then blank. And my worst fear was losing one of my children. And I could not even write that in the blanks because that's how terrified I was of it happening. But God worked me through that process, like 2-3 years before Lance's accident, that I could say, if this happens, then God will still be there for me. So I think, all that foundations that I had from my time with God, from the studies that I did, was very helpful to keep me from turning away from God. I can see how easily it happens. The pain is great. We have expectations of God that don't always happen because we view him through our human eyes. So I don't judge people when they turn away. It's sad because truly he is the only one that can also bring us through it. But I understand how it happens. But for me, I'm pretty sure it was that foundation of having that is what brought me through it, and that strong belief that he was protecting Lance from something.
And I love that you, even I know in your book too, there was just because of your relationship with God, you're able to just say, okay, God, this part I don't like, I can't understand, and he would give you confirmation that this is all you need to know, or whatever, and guide you that way. And I guess I just want to encourage anyone listening that if you feel like, I don't even know this God, I don't even get how this works, that you definitely want to grab Lori's book, because she clearly explains how to come to know Christ, and obviously she has a deep relationship with him. Or I mean, obviously you can message me also, and I'd love to connect with you about that, because we have definitely discovered that you can do life with God or without God, but with God is just 1,000,000,000% is the only reason I started it, actually.
Yeah.
And I guess for those of you who have a relationship with God, but you feel like, oh, well, I didn't know him enough, so now I'm screwed. That isn't true. That is Satan trying to get in. And he, like Lori said, she was able, she poured out her heart to God, right? Psalm 62 says, pour out your heart to God. So you yell at him. And I mean, hey, I have sworn at God before. I don't like, you just don't go around it all the time, but it happens. And it is important to let that out so that you can have space to hear what he has for you. And I promise you, he will come back at you with so much love that you'll be in a little puddle saying, okay, I will let you love me, even though I hate what you allowed to have happen. So,
it just, that reminds me of a Margaret Becker song from years ago. It says, God's not afraid of our honesty. Like, he knows anyhow. So it's only ourselves we're hurting if we're not honest with him, because he knows. And it's in that honesty, when we're honest with him and pouring ourselves out, it's in that moment then that we are also opening ourselves up to his comfort, because otherwise we're putting the walls up, and he longs to comfort us but can't because we've put the walls up. So I shouldn't say can't, he won't, because he's also, like they say, that gentleman, like, he won't push his way in.
So true. And it's like when you can see that your kid, your kid's lying to you, but you are like, I'm just gonna wait, let them simmer in that guilt and stuff, and then eventually they choose to be honest, and then you can
Yeah.
meet them back in relationship and say, okay, well, let's go. Why would you feel like you had to lie or whatever? And it's that rebuilding of the relationship. And obviously God is just, he sent his only son, so obviously he's wanting to
Yeah.
rebuild that relationship with us. Hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything that you wish you would have known before your grief journey began?
Oh, so I'm going to look at my notes quick because that was one that had me stumped for a minute, but I
Mhm.
did get an answer. I said, you know what? Honestly, I wish I would have known how unpredictable the journey was.
Hmm.
Um, there again, quite often we expect people to go X amount of time and you're going to be fine. Like society puts that on us and we just expect that. And it's not like that. It is so unpredictable. Every loss is different because every relationship is different. I mean, I'm thinking back to when I lost my mom. My grief journey is different than my sister's grief journey, even though we all shared the same mom.
Hmm.
And just, yeah, I think we have too many expectations about what a grief journey should look like. And I wish I would have known how unpredictable it was because then I would have given myself more grace right from the beginning.
Right.
So
Totally.
that really is what I wish I would have known. So,
Mhm. And I like that you brought up that each loss is different, right? But do you
mm.
find like the strategies are the same or similar? Like when you
Yes,
okay.
yeah, I do find that definitely they are the same and similar. It's just because that relationship with that person was unique that we're just going to feel it in different ways, but it's still a very much the same process we go through.
Okay. Good. Um, so what have you learned during this journey that's given you more freedom in life?
How to live present moment.
Hmm.
I was always one of these people that it was always what's coming next, what's coming next, what's coming next.
Hmm.
And then when suddenly you've lost, well, specifically with my son, and there is no more next coming with him, there's that whole regret of what I overlooked because I was looking to what's ahead. So I'm far more conscious of living present moment now, appreciating the ordinary moments because honestly, it's the ordinary moments that we miss the most. You know, we have the big things that we did that was a lot of fun, but it's the little ordinary things that we miss the most with him.
Hmm.
So those are two of the biggest things. Uh, Again, sorry, I'm going to check my notes because I know there was a couple other things. And that joy and sorrow can walk hand in hand. I think sometimes we think it's either or, like you're either really sad or you're really happy, but you can actually have moments that have both in. I can be grieving my son and still joyful about things that are happening and noticing the things around me. So that is something that I did not notice until after I lost him.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's things you just sometimes you feel like the things I learned, I don't think I could have learned before because I wasn't in that place to learn, maybe. But
Yes.
yeah, and I think
Oh,
even all this, the expectations or the things that we have
yes,
put upon us, we don't even, I can't even acknowledge them until you're bumping into them all the time, going, but I
yes.
don't feel like that. Like I can't stuff this anymore. I'm gonna
Yeah.
blow.
Yeah, no, I know. I look at the things that I've learned through this, and oh, I wish I could have learned it another way. Like I really wish I could have. And I don't think it's like God allowed this to happen so I could learn these lessons. But that's the beauty of how we can learn through such horrible stuff, like beauty from ashes, right? Like the ashes of that loss. But it didn't just stay there. I was able to learn some beautiful life lessons from it.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to be able to be open to do that. Like there again, we have to allow that to be able to open to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Then the loss isn't in vain. Like why would we want it just to be in vain and just stay in our deep grief? We need to grieve, absolutely need to grieve, but we don't want to stay there because that's not honoring those that we've lost either. They wouldn't want that from us either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To be able to, and it doesn't mean that you stop hurting, doesn't mean that it's okay what happened. It just means that you can function fully in the now,
Yes.
even
Yeah.
though someone's gone on before you, right? Hmm.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you like to say to someone who is aching? Maybe they're just a week out from having had a sibling pass or have lost their child. Like what would be something you would want to say to them?
probably the biggest thing is to have grace on themselves. Don't put huge expectations on what their healing should look like. It's okay not to be okay. We live in a society that just wants to see our happy face. They don't want to see the sadness. But I think the more real we are with our sadness, like we said earlier, and that actually gives others permission to be more real themselves. And then that domino effect happens and it's good for everybody. So be honest with yourself as into what you need, because quite often we will still be more concerned about the others around us and overlook what our own needs are. Especially as women, we tend to do that a lot. So make sure you look after yourself and your needs, whatever those may be. Allow the journey to unfold, preferably without fighting it. We will all have those moments of fighting it, but preferably without fighting it, because then it's a whole lot easier on us. And as dark as it may seem at times, just to remember you are never alone, because I know there are moments we will feel like that, but you are never alone. And some days all we can do is take it moment by moment. All we can do is just focus on our next breath, and that's okay to do that too, but just to know that it's not going to be like that forever. It really will eventually change. So if possible, surround yourself with people that will just let you be real. We don't all have that, unfortunately. I was blessed to have that, but I know there are people that don't have that. So if possible, surround yourself with somebody that will listen without judgment, without any criticism, and allow you to grieve and just be real. I guess that's the biggest thing, is just be real. Don't try and hide it.
Wow.
And to hold on, because it will change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And lastly, I guess just for those who are coming up to those anniversaries, I know I my how I faced them earlier in my grief journey is different than I do now, and I'm curious for you, like, is there that sense of anticipation, like, oh, like Mother's Day is coming up? Like, do you have a special thing you do to survive Mother's Day, or is it you just let it roll, or how do you face the anniversaries?
Personally, I let it roll, um, because I don't want to set in stone how I need to do something now that Lance isn't here. I
Yeah.
do struggle with it. I mean, as you said, Mother's Day coming up, that's already weighing on me, that Mother's Day isn't what it used to be, even though I still have other children. So, I still have children celebrating me as their mother.
Yeah.
It's not the same, but I don't put in, I just kind of take it year to year. And as the day approaches, it's okay. What are my needs this year? And some days I want to do the group. Some years I want to do the group thing. Other years I don't. Just like one year, I went off to Jasper with my husband, and that may sound horrible, but I wasn't even home for Mother's Day with my kids. But that's what I needed that year. And so just really being sensitive to our own needs and just rolling with it when they come, and being allowing that grief, like being knowing it's okay that there again, it doesn't matter how many years it's been, this is an anniversary, this is something that's going to trigger, and maybe it won't. Don't feel guilty if it doesn't, because there's that aspect too. For some people it doesn't trigger, and then they wonder what's wrong with them. It's like, you know what, it's okay, just let it be.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Just
I don't
let
know
it.
if that answered your question
Totally.
about.
Just let it be. I think that rolling with it makes sense. And two, I remember when we had one of our final sessions, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I think Christmas, maybe Christmas was coming, or was the first something, and I'm like, Easter probably. Like, I can't even, like, there's no way, like, how? And you just were like, just enjoy the parts you can. And I'm like,
Yes.
okay, okay. That was just enough, right? Like, it doesn't mean it's all gonna be perfect. We're not promising that, yep, now the wand has been waved. Like, that's not what we're doing. We're saying that there's gonna be parts you can enjoy, and there's gonna be
Yes.
parts you can't, and just roll with it. So
Yeah. And if the tears come, don't try and stop them. There's nothing wrong with them. Like, we tend to try and hide those to make others feel less comfortable, but you know what, we need to release them too.
yeah,
So if they come, it's okay, let them come, because if we let them come, then we can actually get to those joyful moments quicker again than if we're fighting the tears and trying to hide them. Then it lasts longer within us than it does if we just let them come.
that's true, right? Because you're
Mm.
already, yeah, pushing that down, but then you're suppressing all the emotions, not just the grief.
Yes,
Hmm. Wow.
exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Wow. So, Lori, how can people get a hold of you? Because I'm sure people are going to want to connect with you. You have a website or a Facebook page that people can
I
connect?
do. I have both. Facebook, just look up Lori Heitrich. Heitrich is Heitrich. I have both the author page and a grief recovery page there. The website is loriheitrich.com, so that's pretty easy. And on the website, then there is a contact button that if the person wants to send an email as well, they can email. And I do get back to everybody when they do. Sometimes it takes longer than others because of, life.
Yeah,
But I do get back to people. Yes.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so very much for your time and for your honesty and your heart. And we are all blessed because you were willing to share. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Andrea. It's been wonderful getting to know you too. And there again, that was one of the beauty from ashes, right? If either one of us hadn't experienced loss, we probably never would have met each other.
Right? God knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
all right. Well, you have a great day.